Hello all, this is actually a Tyro129 made by Eachine. Maybe hard to tell. A lot of parts have been replaced. So the frame is original. Turn it over. It is a sandwich frame. Have not had any problems with it. It has 5mm arms. I have crashed this thing from a couple 100 feet up when I lost the motor, and it hasn't been a problem. So I'm going to go over the upgrades I've done and why. Some of them were necessary, some of them perhaps not. And yeah. So first, I'm using different props than what came with it. I believe they came with the 7044s. These are 7040s gym fans, and honestly, going back and forth, I don't notice too much of a difference. These are a little bit more floaty and lifty, but with this kind of power, running on 6S, it doesn't really matter too much. So those are great. I might look at a more aggressive prop to get some speed, because I kind of max out. My props tend to start stalling. Every prop stalls at a different speed. Every propeller, like a wing, will have a stall speed. So I mean, if you try to spin them too fast, eventually they still produce lift, but it's diminishing returns. You get less and less lift. So I might look at more aggressive prop to get some more top speed out of it, because right now half throttle gives me about top speed, and anything more is just making noise. Yeah, so but happy so far. I mean, I'm top speed right now, cruising top speed about 150 kilometers an hour, 160 kilometers an hour maybe. So for you Americans, that's about 80 to 85 miles an hour, I believe. I use this GoPro on the top with this 3D printed mount. Now, I know you can buy mounts like these. I happen to have a 3D printer. This particular one is very handy, because this protector actually goes over the existing lens. You don't have to remove the one. It gives these bumpers so that if it does face plant, it doesn't touch, and it has before, and then it simply slides in there. These actually lock in top and bottom. I am not responsible for making this STL for this 3D print. I did find it. I believe it was on Thingiverse. So if you're looking for it, that's where I found it. Yeah, it's very durable. I used a very nice TPU and printed very 100% thickness, so it's thick. It's not going anywhere. I've had to crash this thing many times for different reasons, mostly testing, and it holds on every single time. The GoPro has never fallen off. Another thing that I upgraded that did not come with the Tyro. I'm not sure what receiver came with the Tyro129. I believe it might have been a fly sky option, which is no problem. I've actually had pretty good luck with fly skies, just as much I've had with FR Sky. But as you can see on the front arm here, I've switched over to a TBS Crossfire. This being a long range type of drone, I want to make sure that, you know, I can match my radio range with my video range with the battery range of the drone, so everything makes sense. There's no point in having your radio range run out way before your video, or vice versa. You end up in bad situations. On the back, you can see I've relocated the GPS for this drone. This drone does come in with this GPS and set up with GPS rescue. Warning, I think you might have to do some setup afterwards. I upgraded the firmware, so it's a little different for me now. This is the original unit that came with it. This is again another model that I found online. It is actually printed out TPU as well, so it's actually flexible. It never hits the props. It always hangs down, and when it's flying really fast forward, it'll actually blow back in the wind and stay vertical and stay horizontal. So I find it gets out there and it sees it stays in contact with the satellites more often. Obviously, if you're upside down, not so much. I found mounting it where they wanted you to, which was right here behind the mount for GoPro, was not ideal. It didn't seem to get any signal unless I pointed the right way, and as soon as you turned it like 180 degrees, it would lose all those satellites and try to find new ones. So it seemed to have like kind of tunnel vision. I tried it on the arm. There's quite a bit of noise out here, so it worked all right. It seemed to work. It would get locked, but then it would go in and out of lock. This works about the best, and I think the only way this can be improved is possibly just replacing this unit with a better unit. I actually have a Flywoo GPS unit, the same size. I think it's a newer model, so I might use that one. Future upgrade. So yes, you might notice these LEDs. These are known as race wires. Some of them have LEDs on them, some of them will not have LEDs on them. The purpose of them originally, without LEDs, obviously this gives a little bit of show. These are different color. You can change the colors on these just by soldering different pads on them. And they're fairly cheap from Banggood. But if you do hit a branch while you're flying through a branch, and say you bend this propeller down, if it bends down far enough to reach down and hit wires, if it hits this hard enough, it won't obviously break the arm, but if it comes down, it'll break the propeller and then cut the cables. I've seen it happen, not cut all the way through, but actually cut all the insulation off in a slice. That can happen, so these are kind of dual purpose. These particular ones, they look good from up close, but this drone's so fast and flies so far away that the only time it would look good would be about twilight, which, you know, at sunset it is kind of nice looking. This is running on 6S, so I mean, I guess when I'm really into the power, the LEDs are not facing downward, so maybe that's why it's not seen very much. The VTX is actually the original VTX. I believe it's a max advertised 500 or something like that. It's probably more like 450. I haven't really had too much problems with it. The antenna position's kind of weird when you have a GoPro on the front. As you can see, if you flew out far away from yourself and then flew back, your GoPro is now in between your video transmission antenna and you. So that's causing a bit of a shadow in the signal. I had an incident while flying. A magnet came loose, slid down the bell on the original motors of the Tyro129s, which were 2507 motors, which were fantastic motors. The magnet stayed in the bell, but it slid down, and it slid down far enough to actually slice into the cable, or 3 cables. I didn't cut them off, but what it did is it did short them out. Short them out enough that the ESC had a surge through it, enough to send a surge to the flight controller and actually fry the flight controller as well. So instead of messing around with that, I picked up iFlight Success. I believe it's pronounced. I wish they'd Success is kind of weird. But this is around the back here. It's an F4 flight controller. Comes with Betaflight 4.2 already loaded on it. So that's things like RPM filtering, GPS rescues in there. A lot of good stuff is already in there. So it's already pre-built. From my experience, if you have a flight controller and unless you absolutely need an option or need filtering or something in a newer version, and don't think upgrading is going to fix your PID loop, that's not always the case. It is getting better every version, but I updated this and put RPM filtering on it, and it helped get any instability out for these new motors. These new motors are 2806.5s. They are iFlight Zings. I believe they are 1800 kV. Sorry, correction, 1300 kV. 1300 because I am running 6S on this. Was running 4S for the longest time. 4S runs fine on these. On the original motors. On the original drone, it is fantastic with 4S. You can fly a 6S. My motors couldn't handle it. I think it might have been the heat that maybe loosened the glue on that magnet, but so it was time for an upgrade, and I liked the frame, so I kept it. So these are a lot beefier motors, a lot better cooling on them, and with the RPM filtering, you can actually turn down other filtering a little bit sometimes, and it'll help. When you fly with RPM filtering, though, please do your research, as it can increase any filtering can increase the temperatures of your motors. I consider too hot. If I can't hold my hand on there for 5 seconds solid, it's too hot. After at least a 4-minute flight or 3-minute flight, hard flight, not just hovering. If it's hot after hovering, you got big issues. Camera wise, I'm using just a run-of-the-mill Caddx. Not sure which one it is actually. It's just a Caddx. It's got nice color. It's a 1/3. It's running, like I said, through the stock VTX, which the color is amazing. The clarity is actually really good, and I don't get much interference. This antenna combo works fantastic. After installing the iFlight Success F4 flight controller and 50 amp ESC, I kept the stock tune on it for a 7-inch in Betaflight 4.2, and the motors didn't like it. It seemed to have high P at low RPM, which made sense because it wanted to fly at an idle. It was just because of the difference in the KV. It wasn't set up for that, so that's something to watch out for, guys. Always keep your props off, because if, in my case, it actually almost hovered when I armed it. But quick disarm. Let's just keep your finger on that switch. After applying RPM filtering, everything's been smoothed out. I've always had issues with the yaw under high power with it being under control and being smooth. It's always seemed to be jumped around. So in this case, after RPM filtering, it really smoothed it out. The motors did get a little warmer. I am told that if it does feel good, I can actually reduce filtering even more. But I mean, I went out on yesterday. It was about 34 degrees with the humidex, and probably 28 before Celsius. And you know, that already heats up the motors anyways, so I was pretty happy. So where I went flying, it was somewhere new. It was by a golf course, and I was gonna try to fly by a stadium, but it was all locked up, COVID and stuff. So it was all locked up. So we went down a pathway and just flew around to do a little test flight. Nothing too exciting. The haze is not just the clouds, it's actually smoke from fires. Yep. We have some fire or smoke from fires over here in Ontario. So that's what the haze is. So not a great day for photos, but this is running a GoPro Hero 7 Black Edition.